The holidays are for horses, and we've got stories to tell. Enjoy all the action, heartwarming tales, and world-class training tips during the re-release of Horse Week, brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim. From the history of the Budweiser Clydesdales to Western Dressage trainer and judge, and Thunder the Denver Broncos mascot, Horse Week has something for every horse lover. Cozy up on the couch or watch from the barn. You can take the Horse Week good cheer anywhere you go. Start streaming your favorite features at horseweek.tv. Hey everyone, it's Jillian here. Welcome back to another episode of Winning Insights. On this episode, we have reining trainer Ryan Rushing, who gives us his tips for keeping your horse mentally happy, which honestly is probably one of the most overlooked parts of horse health. And if you want to learn more from Ryan and other top professionals like Bud Lyon, Brad Barkemeyer, Kara Brewer, and so many more, sign up for Horse and Rider On Demand to get access to exclusive video training content from these professionals. So be sure to check the show notes for details for info on how you can sign up. Now here's Ryan.
Hi guys, welcome back to Horse and Rider. Today we're going to be going over some 3 and 4 year olds that I've got. Well, 3-year-olds and Derby horses in general. And I'm Ryan Rushing, train out of Fort Collins, Colorado on a property that my wife and I own. So I train reining horses, compete and show. And so we've got today, I've got some 3-year-olds, and I'll kind of go over where they're at in their training process right now, what I'm doing this time of year, which is May, which is beautiful, and we're finally outside riding. So this time of year, what I'm doing with my 3-year-olds to prep them to show later this summer, kind of where they're at, how I'm preparing them for their first time in the show pen. And then I'm also going to talk about what I'm doing with my Derby horses this time of year. This guy, for example, is a 4-year-old. His name's E.T. So I showed him as a 3-year-old. I've had him since he was a baby, but we just got home from the National Reining Breeders Classic in Katy, Texas. And I showed him for the first time this year at that show, along with a couple other ones. So I'm going to go over what I do coming off of a big horse show like that, and how I'm preparing for the next one. So to jump into that with this guy, like I said, he's a 4-year-old, and the 3-year-old year, it can be pretty hard on these guys, just physically, mentally. You know, it's a lot of stress for them, or it can be, because it's their first experience in the show pen. They're new to it all. You know, we're pushing them hard throughout the year, and especially as we build up to the National Reining Horse Futurity in Oklahoma City, where I showed him. You know, it's a lot of pressure. There's 2 goes plus a finals if you make the finals, which I did on him. So we're asking a lot of these guys. It's very tough physically, very tough mentally. They can come out of that with some baggage, and he's been pretty good about it. But because of that, I intentionally don't overshow them as a 4-year-old. You know, I want them to be good Derby horses long term. So I'm trying to bring them off of that, give them, especially after the futurity, a longer mental break and a longer physical break as I build them up for their Derby years. I feel pretty strongly that coming off of a horse show, you know, any horse show, whether it's a futurity or a Derby, even a smaller event, you know, we're putting a lot of physical and mental stress on these guys. And I think one way to keep your horses mentally happy and physically sound long term is to give them a break after a show. Because we're building them up to a peak at that show where when we walk into the pen, whether it's a finals or one go around, you want them to be at the top of the top of what they can physically do. And they, you know, just like us, they can't stay at that level forever. So we've got to kind of ebb and flow with their training, so that you build up to that pinnacle when we walk into the show pen, and that you let them down and give them a break after that, so that they can just take a breath. Their muscles can relax, their joints can relax. You know, you can run into issues with ulcers and things like that if you try to keep them at that level for too long. So coming off of the Futurity, I gave mine a long break, really almost like a month of just, I might bring them out and long trot them. I might go ride them out in the field unless we had snow. I might just have them lunged or have one of the girls that works for me come out and ride them. So it's just very low stress, no expectations. Then I build him up to show during their 4-year-old year. So with him, I built him up to the NRBC, and it's a tough show. It's a big pin down there in Katy, so we're asking a lot of these guys. It's physically tough, it's mentally tough. And he did pretty well down there, but there were some things coming off of that show that I wanted to work on. But it wouldn't be fair to him to come straight home from that show and go right back to work, especially when looking at it. I had a good 2 months between that show and the Derby, which is my next stop for him to prepare. So at the NRBC, coming off of that, my plan with him was to give him a break. So I gave him about a week and a half off to just come home, have a couple of days to rest, and then get him out and just long trot him, lunge him, turn him out in the arena, do something to where he can just let down a little bit, have a mental break, have a physical break. And I think if you do that with these guys, they come back from it stronger. Because otherwise, they might be developing ulcers in their stomach. They could just be physically tired, frustrated over, me not doing my job right or whatever when we're at the horse show. And it's a really good break for them to just reset, refresh, and be ready to come back to work. So after the NRBC, he's had that time off. Now I'm starting to build up towards the Derby. So the NRHA Derby's in 6 weeks. It's going to be another tough competition. I know he's going to have to be at his best. I'm going to have to be at my best. And so for me, I also take that time to kind of look back and think about, okay, what went well at the last horse show, and what do I need to work on from the last horse show? Whether it's something I did showmanship-wise, something I need to do differently with his training, any of that. And so for this horse specifically, like he's really talented. He has a lot of capability in his maneuvers. He has a capability to stop a +1, to turn a +1. He can be a little bit tight circling because he's not the best mover in the world. He's just a short, compact little guy. So for him, I've got to maximize his potential. Now at the NRBC, once I started my turnarounds, he was really good in the middle of it. But I got a little bit of a delay starting my turns, and then I got a little bit of a delay shutting off. So I had penalties both directions shutting him off. One way I still got some +1s even with that, but then I had a penalty. The other way, they bumped me down to a +1/2 because his shut off was delayed and a little bit ugly. So coming off of that horse show, that's one thing I need to work on. I need to work on the start of my turnaround, and I need to work on the shut-offs of my turnaround. He stopped really good for me down there, so I need to continue to work on that, but it's not as pressing. The other thing that I need to work on is he just wasn't running terribly free on his circles. So I need to work on getting him to just stretch out and relax and run a little bit more in his fast circles. So my plan coming off of a big horse show, heading towards the next horse show, is I'm not going to come out and pick on every maneuver every day. So he knows his job, he knows what I expect of him. So I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper into some more specific things and focus on those. So I gave him his break. Now I'm going to start working on those specific things that needed work for the next horse show. And then as I get closer to the horse show, a couple weeks out, I'm going to put it back together in a pattern and start working specifically on my pattern for the NRHA Derby. So then I'll come out and I'll put those pieces together that I've been working on individually, work through my pattern, and see how it's going when I piece it all back together. But that's going to be the next step. So for today, what I really want to work on with him, like I said, are my turnarounds and then freeing him up in the circles. So I'm going to just take you guys through a ride that I'm going to do on a horse like this time of year. I'm going to start by warming him up. I'm going to trot him around, let his legs really loosen up and warm up. I always want to make sure my fundamentals are good. So I want to make sure my horse is square and soft underneath me. So when I'm riding around, whether it's the walk, the trot, or the lope, I want to use both my legs and pick up my hand, make sure that horse is square and centered with his withers lifted up underneath me. So I'm going to start out doing that, and then I'm probably going to move on to my circles. And then I'll talk you guys through that as I work through those.
Guys for tuning into the Ride Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com to see all the cool things that we're up to. And if you have any comments or questions, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys. And if you like what you're listening to, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.